everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and night. You are now listening to GregTalkz. My name is Greg. I'm currently 19 years old and attending community college. So, in today's episode, I just wanted to give you guys some thoughts on what I think about the Earth, some things we could be doing to stop the pollution of the Earth, as well as some places where you guys could go to support initiatives to help save our planet. Now, I'm just going to start this off by saying that I'm not really a Earth um, lover in the sense of I'm not like a tree bearing person where like I don't like love nature. I do like to, be around nature though, but I'm not going to lie and say that, I really am a tree hugger essentially. But I don't think that's any excuse um not to be like helping out the earth by doing things like recycling, donating to charities to help solve pollution, helping coming up with ways to make new natural energy resources and things like that. So that's why I feel it is not only just my responsibility, but our responsibility to talk about these things and to continue to educate ourselves as to what we are doing wrong and how we can improve. So just to start off, I'm just going to talk about some things that some people probably know about, but not everybody knows about. And these things are just things that we've been doing that haven't been making our planet a nicer place to live on. So I'm just going to go down a list. So the first thing is deforestation, which is the clear cutting or clearing, dealing with the removal of a forest or stand of trees from land, which is then converted to a non-forest usage. This is pretty much when a company pretty much cuts down a forest with a lot of wildlife in it, particularly, and then they build housing and things like that for people to live on. That so much is not necessarily hurting the earth as some of the other things I'm going to mention on this list, but what it is doing is it's destroying like habitats for existing species of animals that would have particularly still been thriving there had we not interfered. So that's all I really have to say on deforestation. I don't have like much on that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was CO2 emissions. So we are rapidly changing the environment by like adding a lot of waste to it, such as things like in cars, gasoline and generators release carbon dioxide into the air. And what happens is when that waste gets released, it essentially goes into plants because plants absorb CO2 in order to produce oxygen. And while that is natural and necessary for us to live, we are releasing so much CO2 emissions into the air that plants can't really take it all in. And because of that, there's a lot of extra CO2 that's just sitting in the atmosphere and is part of the reason why global warming is such a huge issue. The next thing is frozen water on the earth is melting at an extremely high rate due to those CO2 emissions. The planet's snowpack, and when I mean snowpack, I'm talking about glaciers and sea and freshwater ice. And the CO2 emissions that I mentioned earlier are causing them to melt rapidly, which is causing the ocean levels to rise, which is causing flooding on coastal beaches and coastal areas of land masses, which, as we've seen like down in Florida, how the sea level is rising there. Well, that's mainly due to the snowpack basically melting at a rate higher than normal. And of course, melting the sea ice exposes darker ocean waters, which absorb more sunlight than ice, which then leads to the ocean heating up more and speeding up a cycle of melting and heating. And as the oceans are getting hotter, they are expanding and becoming more acidic. They get hotter mainly because they absorb 90% of extra heat in the climate. And this shift causes the oceans to expand, contributing, like I said, to higher sea levels, strips corals of their colors, and it also causes like a third of carbon dioxide emissions to end up in oceans, triggering a chemistry change that makes the water more acidic, and it dissolves the shells of sea creatures. And the ocean, as of right now, is almost like 40% more acidic than it used to be, which is not good. Some of you also know that, last year we had like a major storm, particularly down south. I experienced a little bit of it, but I didn't get hit with the brunt of that storm. The weather is getting like a lot more extreme as we have heat waves that are becoming more frequent worldwide. The increased evaporation of water is like fuel for storms, and that exacerbates the extreme weather events such as hurricanes. And the rising sea levels make storms surge more so and cause even greater damage. And especially in more naturally dry areas, droughts and wildfires that causes them to intensify, like the one that just happened in California. And granted, while California is a place where a lot of wildfires do happen, they're happening more often because of all the things I just mentioned. Also, a warmer atmosphere, it increases the formation of ground level ozone, which is known as smog in polluted regions. And what smog does is it irritates lungs and triggers asthma attacks for people who have weak lungs or just have bronchitis and asthma. And the smoke from those wildfires, it further degrades the air. And the extreme summer heat means like more deaths during heat waves because it's so much more hotter than usual and a lot more drier. And the warmer fresh water, it makes it easier for disease-causing agents such as bacteria to grow and contaminate drinking water. So those are just like a list of things, and they mainly have mostly to do with global warming. But as you can see, like, we go from the CO2 emissions to making the polar ice caps melt to making the ocean levels rise, which makes the weather get more extreme, causing hotter weather, which causes more hurricanes and more pollution in the air because of the ground level ozone. So those are just like a few things, and they all have to do with global warming. But as you can see, like each thing like really leads and makes it's like a chain reaction essentially, though, where each thing gets worse and worse and worse. And if you guys are wondering what happens, like if these things are continue to occur, what will happen is the sea level will rise by like 2100, the year 2100, and that's going to impact like tens of millions of people and wildlife around the world, particularly those living on coast and islands. Like I mentioned, there's going to be more coral bleaching. Coral reefs are at risk of severe degradation by 2100 the year. Changes in the water temperature causes algae to leave coral reefs, turning them white and making them more vulnerable to disease and death, which is what coral bleaching is. And that will continue to happen if global warming doesn't get better. There's not going to be any ice in the Arctic. It's going to be pretty much all water. The Arctic ice recedes every summer, but it still covers millions of square miles of ocean today. But the Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth, and ice-free summers could become a reality. Also, like heat waves. People are exposed to extreme heat waves every 5 years. Heat waves will become more and more frequent and severe around the world, affecting hundreds of millions or even billions of people. There's going to be definitely more flooding, as a lot of the coastal areas are going to experience a lot more heavy rainfall, snowfall, and other precipitation. And the wildlife habitats are at risk of pretty much being mostly gone because as the Earth continues to warm, crucial habitats may no longer be hospitable for certain animals or plants. And of course, this puts a variety of species at risk depending on whether they can adapt or move. But don't worry, this isn't all for naught, as there are a few places you can go to support um, the the removal of global warming, or just the prevention of global warming. And these places I'm going to list right now. The first place you can go to is the Environmental Defense Fund, and that is perhaps the most wide-ranging organization on the list. They work to provide solutions under the broad categories of climate change, oceans, wildlife, and habitats and health. The Environmental Defense Fund works with other organizations, businesses, government, and communities to create incentives for positive environmental actions. It helps companies become better environmental stewards. It influences policy and keeps tabs on emerging issues. The next charity you can support is the Nature Conservancy. The Nature the Nature Conservancy, which protects ecologically important lands and waters around the world with the help of more than 500 staff scientists. The top things that they mainly tackle are climate change, fire, freshwater, forests, invasive species, and marine ecosystems. The next charity you can support is the Natural Resources Defense Council, which seeks to protect the basics, which is air, land, and water, and to defend endangered natural places with an eye toward how these long-term decisions affect humanity. And the top things that they tackle are climate, land, wildlife, water, oceans, energy, food, and the maintaining of sustainable communities. And the last one I'm going to mention here is the American Rivers charity, which protects wild rivers, restores damaged rivers and the wildlife they support, and conserves clean water for people and nature with an eye toward recreationists as well. And the top things that they focus on are river saving, federal river management, and clean water supply. Yeah. So as you can see, I didn't want to get on here and try to tell you guys that you must do these things because you must care about the planet you live on, because the reality of the situation is I can't really make you care about the earth. But what I can do is try to tell you places to go as far as how you can educate yourself, so at least you're in the know about what is going on across the globe. And me personally, though, I mean, I'm not really any better because I haven't really taken any main actions to really help the earth, besides maybe volunteering at certain places Forgotten Harvest, and volunteering on previous Earth days, as well as going to gleaners and things like that to help poverty across the United States or across the globe, and helping out the earth in those small increments. But like I said, I could do definitely better in terms of putting my foot forward to better help out the planet that I live on, and so can you. And there are, of course, a few things that of course, that you can do on a day-to-day basis, continuing to recycle, taking out the trash, of course, making sure that you turn off your lights, especially when you're not using them, because that just uses up excess electricity, which just ups your electricity bill, to be honest. And you don't want that. And making sure you don't run the water too much, though, because a lot of us are overprivileged, and we have more water than we need, but in actuality, though, we waste definitely a lot more, and we use a lot less than we actually need to use. So that's one thing. So, but just look up some ways online you can kind of Do just small day-to-day things, though. You don't have to go out and, support charities. I'm not going to tell you need to do that, but, you should at least, do small things within your own house or wherever you live to try and make the world a better place little by little. And of course, you may not think that you doing those small things actually matters, but in actuality, it does. Because every person, like if they do that though over time, like it will make a large impact. Um, so I would challenge you to work with other people around you, particularly your friends and family, to try to create movements in your community, though, to try to get more people on board to help uh, fix the problems with the earth, though. Um, I think we should make it a priority, though. That's mainly why I'm talking about it on this podcast, because maybe it will inspire somebody to actually create a movement that actually might help in the endeavors of saving the planet. So, with that, I'm going to stop talking. And like I said, I hope you guys learned something or took something away from this. I would implore you to comment down below in the comments section for those of you who are viewing this on YouTube. And I would love to hear your suggestions as to what you, are things that you're trying to get other people to do to help, make the earth a better place to live on. As usual, you could find this podcast on Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, of course, Spotify, and iTunes. If you're willing to support the podcast, you can donate $1 on Anchor.fm on my main podcast page. I might start up a Patreon for those who want to donate to making my podcast production better. But at the moment, you can donate on Anchor.fm to me right now. I will post the link in the description of my YouTube video and on my social media for you guys to be able to find that page relatively easy. And with that, I hope you guys have a good day wherever you are, and I will be back to talk to you guys with a new topic at another time, on another day, within another place. Thank you, and bye.